Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here, and specifically welcome to this new series that I'm making on emotions and processing them. Now, this week I'm going to be talking about shame and guilt. It's going to be a really big topic. I'll cover a lot of information and I'll give very specific tips, tools, and exercises on how to determine whether or not you feel guilt or shame, and how do we process them? Do we even process them? How do we express them? How do we deal with them? So yeah, this is going to be a very important video in my opinion. Now, in the previous videos, I believe I said that all of the emotions I'll be covering in this series are fundamental and basic. Now, that's actually not the case about guilt and shame, so I do apologize for that. These are actually social emotions that I learned and that we have been kind of like programmed to feel them. Yes, anyways. And also feeling guilt and shame has everything to do with the environment we grew up in and with our surroundings, with the people around us, and especially our families, our parents, our guardians, and adults in our lives that kind of shaped our sense of what's good, what's bad, and what's normal and acceptable behaviors and ways to be, and the way we should be doing things, and so on and so forth. Also, I do believe it's important to say that guilt and shame are actually not necessarily negative emotions, as in all the emotions are not negative per se. They are important in their own way. We do have to feel them because they do indicate certain social norms and how we are supposed to behave, and how we're not supposed to behave. So we do know that we're not supposed to do certain bad things, like hurt other people, I don't know, kill people, and so on and so forth, because they're going to be repercussions, they're going to be consequences, we're going to be punished for that. So this is kind of how people socialized and learned certain behaviors as kind of more encouraged and discouraged. So that is not necessarily a negative, bad thing. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're clear on that and kind of like move on from here. Now, we do draw a line with healthy guilt and shame to really unhealthy guilt and shame, where when it comes to, feeling ashamed and guilty because somebody else benefits from us feeling guilty or ashamed. For example, corporations make money on women feeling insecure, and they do sell us ideas of, beauty and ideals, how we're supposed to look, and how we're supposed to be presented to society, right? And that kind of like asks the question of what is beauty, and how do we put borders around something that is so broad and something that is so subjective, right? We're not talking about beauty in this video, but I do want to just put an example of how, a lot of women feel guilt and shame about, specifically shame, right? About looking a certain way, because we know that we are expected to look, a certain way. However, we're not supposed to feel this shame because it has nothing to do with our value as people, and it has nothing to do with anything that we did. So somebody else benefits from us feeling ashamed. Great. This can also apply on a smaller scale, such as our parents wanting us to feel, to behave a certain way so they feel better about themselves, or so they feel better about us. It sounds really sad, but no, isn't that true? It is true. Okay, now let's understand what's the difference between guilt and shame. Roughly speaking, guilt is I feel bad about doing something. I did something wrong. Guilt equals I did something wrong. Now, shame sort of equals something is wrong with me. I feel bad about myself. I am wrong. Something is wrong with me, with the way that I am. Okay, so it's more about me being wrong, and guilt is about me doing something wrong or having done something wrong. Now, I want to give two examples to kind of help you understand how the feelings, like the deep feelings of guilt and shame, can be formed in a positive way and in a negative way. So, example number one, if a child, hurts another child, right? The parents can explain to their child that what they did was wrong, that their actions were wrong, not them as a person, not that the child is, a bad kid or a bad person now, right? But they did something wrong, and they can kind of educate them to do better next time, to not hurt other kids. They teach them empathy, and we can all move on as better people, understanding that that certain actions have consequences, but that doesn't have anything to do with you as a person and your value as a person. Now, example number two, a child gets a bad grade in school, and parents resort to physical or emotional violence towards the kid because they are not happy with the kid's performance in school. What does that teach a kid? I'm a bad person. Something is wrong with me if I'm not doing something that is expected of me. My parents are not happy with me. I did something wrong. So me getting a bad grade is something that I perceive as something that I should feel ashamed and guilty about. This child proceeds to believe that I am only accepted and loved and treated as a normal, kind of like acceptable person if I'm doing everything perfectly, if I'm delivering very specific results that are expected of me. And obviously kids like this grow up to be adults who have, unfortunately, the exact same mindset. They believe that they can only be loved and accepted if they are perfect, whatever that means, and they do everything that is expected of them. So if other people are happy with them, they are good. They feel no shame. But I mean, of course, they constantly feel the background shame because, they're always worried about how they're perceived by other people. That's a slippery slope. That's exactly why we're talking about this. And this is all very sad. It's going to trigger potentially some painful memories. I'm sorry about that in advance, but we are fixing it. We are working on this here. Feeling guilt and shame on a regular basis are actually contradictory to acceptance and to self-love. And self-love is what we are aiming for, kind of like self-acceptance is what we're aiming for. Also, feeling guilt and shame are really counterproductive. So yeah, let's do something about that. All right, in this first section, we'll talk about shame. Then later on, we'll talk about guilt. And then I will talk about exercises you can do to kind of like understand how you feel in the moment and understand what to do with that. So let's start with shame. Shame is the fundamental deep belief that something is wrong with you. It's the fear that others will find out that something is wrong with you. Metaphorically speaking, we carry this kind of like baggage of things that we feel ashamed of. We have certain ideas about ourselves that we think are unacceptable and wrong, and they might have absolutely nothing to do with reality, but we kind of put them in this baggage, in this like bag, right? And we put a lot of energy into hiding this bag from other people, to hiding this baggage. We carry it with us. It's really heavy sometimes, and we put a lot of energy into hiding it from other people. So through working through guilt and shame, we are learning to let go of this heavy weight and free a lot of energy to, do something productive and something that actually makes us feel good and something that contributes positively to the world and to our lives. So yes, shame is not something that we can express per se. It's not something we can process through expression. It is something that is like deeply hidden inside ourselves. It is something that is hidden deeply inside ourselves in this baggage that we hide from other people and sometimes even from ourselves. So what we can do about this, the exercise that we can do and we should do in this situation, is open the baggage and face the fear, face all of these things that make us feel so low about ourselves. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take a piece of paper, and yes, we're going to write things out again because If you do have a habit of journaling, you know how helpful it is to put things on paper, how to put things from your head on paper and like see them. So just roll with it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to write out everything that makes you feel ashamed of yourself, and you can categorize those things into different groups, like for example, like looks and your body, your skills, certain things you can and cannot do. You can also put a special category of like things that, for example, you have never done before that other people did, like traveling or to other countries or something like that, or having relationships or whatever else. And you do feel ashamed of those things because you believe that it is normal to have certain experiences that you've never had before. So you can just kind of like categorize them separately. Doesn't really matter that much, but you need to write out all of these things and be extremely honest with yourself, kind of like, face all of these deeply shameful things. Now, what you're going to do after that, you're going to, on a separate paper, create 2 columns, 2 groups. The first group you're going to name growth / change, I would say. And the second column you would call acceptance. You probably see where I'm going with this now, because what you'll need to do, you will have to put all of these different points into 2 separate groups. You're going to categorize them into the things that you can change about yourself and the things that you cannot change, and therefore you're going to be working on accepting them. Now, after you've done that, you can look in the first column called growth / change and come up with some kind of a plan of how you're going to be changing these points about yourself that you're unhappy with. So if you're lacking certain skills, you can come up with a certain plan to develop these skills, right? If you're unhappy with something with your body that you can change, you're going to put, like certain things that you can do. You can put in certain things that you can do to change that. So if you want to, for example, I don't know, lose weight or gain muscle mass or something like that, you're going to put a certain plan of how you're going to change that. So it can be a diet plan, a workout plan, whatever else. When it comes to the points that, when it comes to those points that you want to do that you've never done before, if you cannot do them, and if you couldn't do them in the past because of, for example, financial reasons, you can write them out as goals and like things to achieve in the future when you are financially stable and you can do them. So you have to reframe your mindset from thinking that these are things you're ashamed of because you've never done them to something that you will do once you have the opportunity to do that, and see them as future goals and plans. When it comes to the second column, the acceptance column, it might be a little bit harder to do, but on the other hand, none of this work is easy. However, it is really fundamental and important. These are the things you're going to be reading to yourself every day, maybe, before going to bed or something like that, and keep reaffirming to yourself that these are just facts about you, okay? It's just what it is. They are not negative, they're not positive, they're just neutral. This is just what it is, and it's completely normal. Just facts. My hair is not behaving very well today. Oh, okay. Now let's move on to guilt. This is interesting. I strongly recommend that we start calling guilt responsibility. This is going to be very helpful to have or to gain more agency and to start taking responsibility for your life and for your actions. Yeah, and it's going to be really helpful, and you will see why. And now, let's look at your zone of responsibility, the things that you are responsible for, right? So we have your emotions, your words, your actions, and your behavior. All right? I mean, you can also put like the way you look in here also. So the way you present yourself to the world. These are the things that you are responsible for. If any of these things make anyone feel some type of way, if your words, your emotions, your feelings, the way you express yourself, the way you behave, offend somebody else or make somebody else feel something, you're going to ask yourself, is it something that I am responsible for? The answer to this question is No, you're not responsible for these things. You're not responsible for your emotions. You're not responsible for your words. You're not responsible for your behaviors. Now, it does sound kind of negative and wrong, but we are operating under the assumption that you are doing, you know, legal, correct, non-offensive things here. And we're moving on. We're kind of moving on from that. If any of these things make someone else feel some type of way, whose responsibility is that? It's their responsibility, okay? If someone else feels some type of way, a negative emotion, because of what you said or what you did, it is their responsibility, okay? What another person can do, they can express how they feel to you. And this is exactly what we talked about last week when I talked about anger. It's actually a healthy thing to do. Someone else can express to you how they feel, or how you make them feel, or how, you know, your words or actions made them feel. And now you have a choice to change whatever it is that you did, or to not change that. Now, that is going to lead to you feeling not guilty but responsible for what you do, and kind of makes you feel more, I don't know, more mindful and more aware of your actions, of yourself. So you take responsibility for the way that you act and for the way that you talk, the way you present yourself to the world. You do these things mindfully. And this is exactly where a lot of people kind of like get trapped, if they have been trained to feel guilty for other people's emotions and feelings. And you will take other people's discomfort as a cue to feel guilty and responsible for that. Once again, you're not responsible for other people's behaviors and feelings. Someone else can tell you how they feel, and you make a choice of what to do based on that. So to really drive this point home, let's look at three situations. That was four. Three situations in which you can feel guilt, okay? So number one, you crossed someone's boundaries and they told you about that, okay? These things can happen. Other people's boundaries are their responsibility, obviously, just like your boundaries are your own responsibility. So if someone tells you about that, it's a very responsible thing to do. Now, based on that, you make a choice whether or not you change your behavior and, you know, if you do anything about that. Number two, nobody said anything to you, but you feel the guilt anyway because you imagine that someone else feels a certain way. You imagine someone feels some kind of discomfort. You basically project onto them and you feel guilt because of that. Now, I will say it again, that we are adults and we all have responsibility for how we feel and what we say to other people. So if nobody says anything to you, this is not your burden to carry. And number three, manipulations. Of course, manipulations. Manipulations is when someone cannot directly express to you how they feel, but they try to make you feel a certain way. So they're not telling about how they feel. They're not talking about, like, you know, being hurt because of what you said and feeling some type of way because of what you did. But they make you feel guilty. They want you to feel the guilt and shame and do something about that. They can directly say that you should feel ashamed, that you should feel guilty, that you did something wrong. They can also indirectly ask for you to do something by using pity. So they talk about how bad it would be for them, how bad they would feel if you don't do something for them. It's better that you understand earlier than later that this is manipulation. Now, what do you do if you understand that someone is manipulating you? You only have two choices. You can do whatever it is that that they are asking you to do because of the guilt, or you can accept responsibility, understand that you are being manipulated, and refuse to do whatever it is that someone is asking you to do. And what they're asking you to do is to feel the guilt or shame. So there's that. And you might want to go back to the previous video about anger and look at that, because the way you would express yourself here would be the way that I was teaching in the previous video about anger. Okay, now back to putting guilt and shame together. Before I talk about the exercises, let's talk about validization. So Again, a lot of the times in our childhoods, our parents did not validate our feelings, which taught us to invalidate our own feelings. Now that we are adults ourselves, it is our job to validate our own feelings, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. We need to validate our feelings. So we need to accept everything that we did, everything that we've done, everything that we say, everything that we feel. We need to validate that. Exercises. Let's talk about exercises and what you can actually do in order to figure it out, because it's a bit complicated, especially all the, all of that. Okay. So you might want to take a whole week to do this. You might take a few days, but I want you to track your emotions. I want you to write down every time, every situation that occurs in which you feel guilt or shame. Okay? After that, you're going to go to your list of these events and you're going to do the following things. First of all, you will determine whether it's guilt or shame. Okay? And here I just want to remind you that guilt is about you doing something wrong and shame is about you being wrong. Now, number 2, you need to understand whose responsibility it is. Okay? Did someone else make you feel some type of way? Did someone else impact you feeling guilty or ashamed? Or regardless of your answer here, by the way, you move on to the next point. Number 3, you validate your feelings, okay? Regardless of whether or not it's your responsibility, you validate how you feel, you validate your emotions, all right? So even if you're responsible, if you're not responsible, you still write out that, I feel guilty because someone else told me something, right? Or I feel deeply ashamed, or not ashamed, I feel guilty because I think my friend feels a certain way that, I think I should do something, but I can't do that. And I'm choosing myself here, but I feel, all of this, I feel all the guilt about this. You validate your emotion. Now, number 4, you validate your actions. So you write out why you did what you did and why you said what you said. You validate what actually happened, your actions. And finally, number 5, which is my favorite, you're going to pick an action. You're going to understand what actually happened. So number 1, you understand that you're responsible. Okay, so maybe someone said something to you that, what you did hurt them or upset them or something like that. If you understand that you are responsible, you are going to take action. So you're going to change your behavior. You can apologize. You can change something about the way that you acted in the future. You can change something about what it is that you said or did in the future. What you can do, after the situation happened, is you can apologize. And if you understand that you're responsible, you do it sincerely, of course. So you can change your behaviors, you can change your actions, you can apologize if you understand that you did something wrong. This is a very responsible and adult thing to do. So that is also going to free you from any feeling of guilt and shame, because you are taking responsibility for what you're doing. And another person, which you also need to understand, also has a free will, and they can accept or not accept your apology, and that is okay. There is nothing you can do about that beyond that, but you have certain zone of control and responsibility, and you're going to act within that zone. Now, number 2, if you feel like you are being manipulated and you did not do anything wrong, you chose yourself in the moment, or whatever happened, you did not actually do anything to feel guilty or ashamed about, someone is manipulating you, in that case, you express your anger. And to learn how to express your anger, you go back to the previous video and you watch how you express anger. Now, number 3, which is a little bit more complicated, is you understand that it was not your responsibility. My light just went off. Oh no. We'll have to continue in this less beautiful setting. So number 3 is you understand that it was not your responsibility, but you do feel this deep feeling of guilt and shame because this is something that you used to. This is something how you used to made to feel when you were younger. And yes, there is something you can do about that. You do a different exercise. You do an exercise of letting go of this deep shame and guilt. And in a moment, I will tell you exactly how to do that. All right. So what you are going to do is you're going to lay down on a flat surface, like on a bed or on a floor, something like that. You're going to take a few deep breaths. You're going to slow down your body. You do a body scan meditation, and you identify in which part of your body you feel this, deep set feeling of guilt and shame, right? You identify that feeling, you identify the place, and instead of escaping, you focus on that feeling and you try to amplify it. So you do stay there. This is very uncomfortable. It's not a very pleasant feeling, but you do stay there and you concentrate on it. You let it expand. You can imagine that this feeling or, this guilt or shame is kind of like a bowl, and you expand this bowl until it gets as big as it can be, and you feel this feeling. You do not escape from it. It's something that I talked about actually in my second video on how to let go and process, uncomfortable, painful emotions. And you feel it until this feeling naturally subsides and leaves you. You can finish your practice once you no longer feel this very strongly concentrated, guilt or shame. You can also repeat this every time you notice this emotion and you understand that this is something that it's not something that you actively did. It's not your zone of responsibility. There's nothing that you can apologize for. It's just something for you to figure out. You do this body scanning meditation. You feel it until it's no longer taking such a big space in your body and in your mind. You concentrate on it until it becomes less intense. All right, so this is it for today. We talked about guilt and shame in quite a bit of detail. It's a really long video. I really hope that you found it useful. I really hope you like it. My light died and I hope it was worth it. So anyways, thank you very much, you guys, for watching this video. I really hope that you liked it. I really hope that you found it useful. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please share this video with your friends and family members, especially with the people who you think would benefit from it, because a lot of us struggle with expressing our emotions and identifying them. So there's going to be a lot more interesting and very helpful videos in the future. And please stay tuned, because next week we have a video on a different emotion. I'm not going to tell you which one. You'll have to find out, for which you would have to stay tuned, okay? All right, you guys, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so very much, and I love you.